Kimberly, the 5-Minute NP. The 5-Minute NP was born out of my belief that small, incremental changes can drastically change the trajectory of your life. Our genes do not have to determine our lifespan. My goal through this podcast is to act as a roadmap that bridges the gap between knowledge and action, leading to you living your healthiest, happiest, longest life. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. On today's episode, I interviewed John Dicey, the Global Chief Executive Officer and Senior Therapist of Allen Carr's Easyway worldwide. John was an 80-a-day smoker and had tried many times to quit, using every method possible. Nothing worked. Until 1997, when he attended Allen Carr's clinic in London, and to his surprise, he left the clinic a happy, non-smoker, never to go back. Allen Carr became his mentor, and he was fortunate to work closely with Allen, co-authoring a book series together. He has sold over 16 million copies worldwide, and when Allen passed back in 2006, he was lucky to carry on Allen's mission to rid the world of smoking. His program has helped people escape the prison of addiction in over 50 countries and have helped over 50 million people quit smoking, even including Anthony Hopkins, Ellen DeGeneres, and Ashton Kutcher, to name a few. He is a humble man with a mission and continues to expand into other areas of addiction, including sugar and technology. His belief is addiction is 1% physical and 99% mental, and quitting an addiction is easier than you think. You will enjoy this informative and enlightening conversation with John. Hello, John. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Great to meet you at last.
Yeah, you too. What have you been up to during all this time lately?
Well, it's been a very long journey, hasn't it? I mean, in some regards, lockdown in London towards the end of March, it seems like yesterday. But then we actually think through the events since. It's been quite a journey, and I at a terrible time for the world. I think I'm very pleased that myself, my family have, I guess, together we've made the best of it. I've been very lucky that my daughter, she's 19, so she came back just before lockdown, and that was from university. So that was great. And my son's 17, and it's been great to have the family together. I guess if it's going to be a terrible time, and at least if you're together, it's something, I guess. So, and work has been phenomenally busy, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, what we do, we help sort of people get free from addiction. So a job is never really done, but there has been no real kind of easing off of work, which again, I think is a blessing and a curse in the same way, I guess. Which way you look at it.
I totally can see where you're coming from. I mean, I would feel like addiction probably, got worse during this time. Some out of boredom, some out of depression, anxiety, the uncertainty of it all. I mean, I can see how people would tend to go towards more addictions or worsening the ones they had.
Yeah, definitely. That's certainly the feeling that we've had. I mean, we got involved. I got personally involved with a couple of big projects with some NGOs, stop smoking charities, where I provided free of charge support to smokers, whether they wanted to use Allen Carr or Allen Carr's Easyway or not. And that was really, it was a real pleasure to do that and get back in touch with smokers, particularly those who didn't necessarily know anything about Allen Carr. And I managed to finesse the deal that Audible have, if you like audiobooks, but when you sign up for an Audible account, you get a free book. So anybody who maybe hadn't come across Allen Carr before, it's quite lovely to say, look, we don't know the cent out of this, but if you sign up to Audible, you get a free book. Go for it. That was a lovely thing to do. So we, I think that reached tens of thousands of people over a really important time for smokers, really. But across the board, whether it's nicotine addiction or cocaine addiction or alcohol issues, it does seem to have ramped up as the crisis has deepened. And I think as hopefully we come out of the crisis, I think people will reach out for a little more help. So I think those in the crisis who were scared, that's when they reached out for help. But I think there's been others where maybe problems have been accumulating over the last few months. And when they see some light at the end of the tunnel, that the world's kind of going back to normalish, think, okay, so maybe I need to address this now, and maybe now's the time.
Right. Well, interestingly, last night I was on a Twitter feed about smoking. Somebody had mentioned, why would anybody smoke or something like that? And so, of course, everybody's chiming in. And I thought, isn't that an interesting time to have a feed going on about smoking? And somebody had mentioned Allen Carr's book about smoking. And I just thought, wow, this is crazy, this timing. So I mentioned I was talking with you today about addiction. So I just found that interesting, the timing. But could you just tell me who was Allen Carr for those who weren't familiar with his work?
Yeah, sure. Allen Carr, I was very lucky that he was not only my sort of coach and mentor, but a good friend as well. Worked with him for years. He was a born and bred Londoner in the UK. A lot of people think he's American, particularly in the UK. I think it's a thing that any kind of self-help thing that appears to be successful and effective, I think us Brits always assume it's come from America. So it's quite he's London born and bred, and he was exactly the same as me, a chain smoker. Tried every method under the sun to quit, and finally kind of stumbled across a way of thinking that instead of finding it impossible to quit, he actually found it easy. And it's just kind of neuroscience is just coming to terms with this process he created. Mm-hmm. He had no training, no medical training at all. So he's an accountant, and his long-suffering wife Joyce, who's still with us, and it was a secret. He always said, never has it been truer. Behind every great man's a great woman. She's absolutely brilliant, and she thought he was mad. He basically, this is going back to 1983. He stubbed out as a chain smoker. He stubbed out his final cigarette and said, "That's it. I'm going to cure the world of smoking."
Oh wow!
And she thought he was crazy, just because he figured it out. He couldn't wait to tell people about it. So he kind of helped a few friends quit smoking, and they told their friends who came to him to help. And then eventually, he sort of, well, okay, I need to do this properly. So he closed down his business, other business interests, and started charging a fee to enable him to go full time. And purely based on reputation, there were no clever advertising campaigns. People started coming from all over the UK, then all over the Europe, then all over the world to see him. He he went from one-to-one seminars to seminars of up to 10, 20 people. And through this spoken therapy, would just have people understand the addiction, and then understand, based on that, how it could be easy to get free. How could anything possibly that seems so hard become so easy? And I was the worst smoker of all, and I went along to Allen's seminar in London in 1997. And as I said, I was a chain smoker, 80 cigarettes a day, I'm embarrassed to admit. And I tried everything to try and quit. And eventually, my wife convinced me to go along. There was this money back guarantee, so I thought, I can't really lose. And I did a deal with her. And I said, if I go along and it fails, I can smoke in peace and quiet for a year. And I was so pleased. And I fully expected to fail. And no one was more surprised than me or her when that was that. So that's how I got involved. So sort of kind of I went along, and shortly after that, I just thought, God, what has he done to me? This is amazing, and got in touch with him. So that's in a nutshell the story of Allen. I mean, what really took it beyond London, beyond the UK, was his decision to put the method into the form of a book. And again, Joyce thought he was crazy because he couldn't see enough people. He didn't have enough time, didn't have enough hours in the day. So he put the method into a book that was based on the seminar. And it's the best-selling stop smoking book of all time. So it's reached, I think, 60 different countries, 45 different languages, bestseller all over the world. And we estimated a couple of weeks back that the seminars and the books are now responsible for helping something like 50 million smokers worldwide. So,
and you co-authored with him on some books, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the book on stopping smoking was phenomenally successful. And what we've done over the years is just kept that up to date as far as we can. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's originally written sort of in the 80s. And we, because people get in touch, say, look, this helped me with smoking. Can you help me with this? Or please, can you help me with that? Right. It became, quite important for us to create this addiction program where, this beautiful method could be applied to a whole range of issues and addictions. So that's where sort of I came in keeping the method contemporary with regards to smoking, but also expanding it into other areas, whether that's sugar addiction, alcohol addiction, gambling addiction, a whole host of things we've applied the method to. I mentioned earlier, cocaine addiction as well. And it's not something that's easily done, I think, and that's otherwise we wouldn't have had to do it. If somebody who read the Easy Way to Stop Smoking and understood it, some people can apply it to the other aspects of their life, and that's brilliant. But it actually takes quite a long time to just make sure that everything matches in how the method is applied, whether the issue is alcohol, gambling, cocaine, or what have you.
Do people typically that have one addiction have another addiction, and do they always need to be addicted to something?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of the belief that there's an addictive personality, the addictive gene. I was convinced of it. And that's why I thought I'd never quit smoking, because it's in my genes. What can I do? It's just the way I'm made up. We don't really get involved in whether there's an addictive personality or an addictive gene, because it doesn't really matter. As long as the addict follows the Easy Way method through, they find it easy, regardless of what their personality, regardless of what their genes are, what nationality, whether they're Chinese, Japanese, Australian, Colombian, well, it doesn't really matter. As long as our translation's done properly, they get free. And it's quite a liberating thing for most people who are convinced that there's this, the addiction's got a grip of them, they're never going to be free. Oh, wow, I can get rid of smoking. And then they kind of look at other areas of their life and think, what else could I improve? What else could I maybe work on? And it encourages them to look at that. So I didn't really answer your question, did I? But I think many people have kind of multiple addictions, or really, sometimes you don't really realize you have an issue until you got rid of another one. So it's not a case of sort of one addiction replacing the other, but a vast majority of people who attend our alcohol seminars or read our alcohol books, they tell us the first time they realized they might have a problem was with the recycling. In London, you have recycling for bottles and recycling for paper or whatever. And they suddenly realized that actually, particularly in lockdown, when there's been sort of not a lot of other stuff going on in our house, well, this mountain of empty wine bottles or whatever it might be is quite significant. And we haven't had guests around. We haven't had, this must be me, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I think if people realize that there's another area of their life they want to improve on, it's a really empowering thing. I think the fear of flying was interesting. That was a really interesting project because it wasn't really it's not an addiction. It's very, for me, it's a very logical problem. You know, I was a terrible flyer. When I was young, I flew everywhere, had no problem at all. But as I got a bit older, I guess into my mid-20s, late 20s, I began to sort of white knuckle it a bit. And I had no reason to. I didn't have a bad experience. It just so when Alan sort of started talking about, I'm going to look at fear of flying, I was kind of secretly, I was really relieved, and I was a little bit what's the right word? Skeptical about it. And I just thought, well, smoking, yeah, we've done that. Yeah, alcohol, we've done that. We can flying, really. And I was really pleased to work with him on it. And blow me down. The first time I flew, when we completed the project, I was actually pretty cool. And my wife noticed it most because the last trip we took before we got married, I flew us to Paris, and she just, what the hell is wrong with you? Sort of trying to fly a plane. So that was wonderful. That's one of those unexpected little trivial. We call it trivial, but for some people, it's the difference between seeing their grandkids or not.
Right.
We have grandparents live in London, grandchildren live in Sydney, Australia, or somewhere else. It's a brilliant thing, and those are some of the most beautiful letters and the emails we get still from people who manage to get to see their grandkids far away.
Well, you're right about that. What seems like, people that don't have an addiction, it is hard to understand people with an addiction. And I'm coming from personal experience. I mean, my older brother has had addiction problems since his teens, from smoking to drugs. He's been in prison multiple times, homeless. He just recently found himself back in jail on some serious counts. It's been devastating to the family. And, no matter how much time, how much money, how much encouragement, sometimes, it's just these addictions take over. They continue to lie, deny, carry on. And I think what I've seen is they tend to blame other people. And then the last time I talked to my brother, I've helped him so many times, and I finally had someone tell me, that's not the kind of help he needs. He doesn't need you to keep setting him up, giving him So, the last time I talked to my brother, I'm trying to encourage him and, hey, let's try this. And, the only kind of help he wanted was money. And in his mind, he always has told me, I don't have a problem. I don't have an issue. And so that is, I think, a difficult thing to deal with people with addictions, is you're right. They don't even see that it's an issue a lot of times.
Yeah, and in most cases, the only issue is they can't get enough of it. Right. They've got enough money or whatever. Right. I think addiction, people are incredibly cruel with addicts of anything, very judgmental.
Yes,
and my heart goes out to you and your family. I mean, that's such a difficult thing to deal with in the best of times. But there's this, I guess it's human nature. You see somebody who's losing everything, whether this is through gambling or alcohol or drugs or whatever, they're losing everything. And there's kind of a tendency for people to say, oh, for goodness sake, just stop, just decide to stop. It doesn't quite work like that. It's and a lot of the help people get is counterproductive. So this kind of I think the difference between Allen Carr's method and all the other methods say don't do it because it's killing you, it's costing you a fortune, you're losing your family, everything's going wrong, blah blah, all the downsides. Allen Carr was the first person who said, well, let's not look at that side. Everyone knows that, every addict knows what they're doing to themselves deep down inside. Let's look at the other side. Why do we do it in spite of all the disadvantages? What's that belief system surrounding this addiction? And they're all pretty similar, whether it's nicotine, alcohol, gambling, cocaine, whatever it might be. They're all pretty similar belief system. And piece by piece, what Allen Carr's Easyway does is it just shows an addict why their belief system is flawed. So now it takes about 5 or 6 hours, and you start at a point of absolute blunt resistance. And I was the worst in the world. As I said, I went into my Allen Carr seminar, 1997, and the first thing they said was, "You're going to find it easy to stop smoking." And I thought, "You got to be kidding me!" Who the hell do you think you are? Like, I've tried to quit smoking dozens of times, using every method under the sun. It was torture and hell. I'd be a physical wreck. I was like a proper junkie. I'd be sweating, torture and hell. The longest I lasted was a few hours. So, I mean, this is how pathetic I was, a few hours. And quite often that was if I got to sleep. How can you possibly tell me that something that has had that physical grip on me for so long is suddenly going to melt away? I'm going to find it easy. But because people hear of how successful the method is, they're prepared to give it a go. And I remember, it was back in 1998, after Allen really took me under his wing and trained me and mentored me and took over his original centre in London. The first time I walked into a room full of smokers, 20 smokers, and I was the guy at the front saying, "You're going to find it ridiculously easy to stop." And I saw the faces looking at me, oh my God, thank God I've been trained. But you see, during the course of 5 or 6 hours, it's like an onion. Each layer of an onion comes off, and what you're left with is the truth. And it's the truth that it takes 5 or 6 hours to get to, because how do you possibly tell an addict they don't get anything from their drug? I was an 80-a-day smoker. I'm spending a fortune on cigarettes. Right. It's controlling every aspect of my life. I can't do anything without cigarettes. How can you possibly get someone who's lived that to suddenly realize you don't get anything out of it? And anything you thought you got out of it is phony. And that's the beauty of the method. And the beauty of it really is that it can be applied to pretty much any addiction or issue.
Wow. On your, I was reading about it, and you say addiction is 1% physical and 99% mental. Is that right?
Yeah. And people are really shocked by that, but it makes absolute sense when you think about it. People are less resistant about this with nicotine. Once you explain why you think the physical addiction is so mild, the penny drops. There's evidence in every smoker's life that proves this to them once it's put to them in a certain way. It's like Alan's favorite movie was 12 Angry Men. It was 12 Men. Henry Fonda. Okay. Henry Fonda. God, the name of the movie's gone up in my head. But where gradually the case is put, and everyone in the room, they change their mind and come around to his way of thinking, and that's what the method does. And I guess the problem with most traditional addiction programs is they focus on the 1% physical and ignore the 99% mental. Now, and this is controversial, and please, I hope your viewers don't turn off at this point, but it's exactly the same for most addictions. There's very little data on stuff like this, whether it's cocaine or heroin or whatever else, but this is most clear in unfortunately in prison situations, where prison doctors in certain countries, heroin addict, bless them, gets arrested, gets thrown in jail, and over the course of the next few days, they're not given any treatment. They go through withdrawal. They don't die in most cases. They just go through withdrawal. Even with a drug like heroin, the physical withdrawal is actually not that bad. You don't feel great, but it's not that bad. It's what's going up here that matters. So yeah, it's if the great thing being, if the most of the problem is mental, it's a case of just rewiring your brain, and that's remarkably easy. So these days, Allen Carr's Easyway is kind of described as cognitive restructuring or reframing. And it's just if your belief system, you get a feeling that gives you a thought, I want a cigarette, and you respond to that by lighting a cigarette. If you disrupt that belief system, if you reboot your addicted brain, if you like, something that seems impossible to stop doing becomes really pleasurable. So instead of feeling, oh God, I can't have a cigarette, you feel, I'm free, brilliant. Life doesn't get any better than that. So instead of those moments of feeling deprived, you have these little moments of like, great, I don't have to do that anymore. That in a nutshell is Allen Carr's Easyway.
Well, I think that I think you mentioned that, like, they know the downside of everything. But they feel, people with addictions feel like their life will never be the same without it. But yet also, they feel like they enjoy life better, all of these things. But like you said, it does kind of like hang over them as well, like a dark cloud over them. They have that shame and all of those other things. And I think that you're right as far as the brain goes now. We've known so much more about the brain, so many ways that the brain changes according to what we tell it and its surrounding environment, that they probably can't believe that, they're going to be able to have this kind of freedom in their life. I mean, it opens up a whole world of possibilities.
Quite right. And that's the real thing. And it's our own comprehension that's the issue. We just can't believe it's going to be simple, but it's a simple. What we try in our live seminars or books, we just kind of peel away that onion, to get to over a period of time. And it's intelligent people fall for confidence tricks, schemers, con men. Hustlers, I think that's for the American sort of parlance, but intelligent people fall for this. But once it's a hustle, it's a con, it's gone. It's gone forever. It's always, I don't want to put people off Paris, but there's in Montmartre in Paris, it's terrible. The streets around there have been taken over by kind of local gangsters who do this kind of the pea cup trick, three shells and a little pea under it, and you pick out which one's it which one is it under. Now, as soon as you know that's a hustle, it's a confidence trick. You're not going to win. Yeah. You're not going to win that. Now, you have to be an idiot to play that game and put money on it. Yeah. And once you know it's a confidence trick, freedom is easy.
Wow. Now, how much of addiction, or what percentage, or is genetic?
Yeah, I mean, we don't pretend to be experts at that at all. As I alluded to earlier, really, our stance is pretty straightforward. That it doesn't really matter. Is it nature or nurture? The stats are pretty bad. If you alcohol addiction is a feature in your home when you're a kid, then chances are that might be the way you go, and so on. I'm not going to argue any of that. That sometimes happens where if the child doesn't even know their parent had alcohol issues or whatever. There's an area which we, rightly or wrongly, we just haven't been that interested in, because it doesn't matter. Apply Allen Carr's Easyway, and whether you have or haven't got an addictive personality or an addictive gene or whatever, it doesn't matter. You'll still find it easy to quit and stay quit. That's the real difference.
Wow. Yeah. I feel like you're so right about that. I mean, you hear so many people that quit smoking, and then something happens in their life, some form of stress, and then they start back up. And it's just like this vicious circle of quitting, starting. And I don't know if that's similar with other drugs or with smoking. I mean, is smoking the most common form of addiction?
I would think so. I mean, got to be smoking and alcohol. Gambling is becoming more and more common. I think in the USA, it's there aren't so many places where you can actually gamble in person. But whether online gambling is a feature in the USA at the moment, it certainly seems to be more and more so. But certainly in the UK and other countries, gambling seems to becoming more problematic. And it's it's where addictions meet, a combination of tech addiction and gambling addiction. So, as a kid, I was talking to my dad about this at the weekend, actually. He's 86. And for some reason, we were talking about gambling, and he said, he hadn't been into a bookmakers, which we call them in the UK, somewhere where you go and place a bet. He hadn't been into a bookmakers until he was about 70. Never been in one. And I was probably 25 before I went into one. They were always kind of mysterious places behind blacked out windows. Every high street in London would have one or two of them on there, but they were mysterious places. But now, as soon as a kid gets a smartphone in their hand, as soon as they go online, they're exposed to stuff like gambling. It starts with the gaming.
Exactly. I was just going to say that it's all about the gaming and the FanDuel or the, the fantasy sports.
Yeah, and the point about it with online gaming, these games are designed to be addictive. That's the point of them. Yeah. There isn't a boardroom of Games Corp anywhere in the world talking about how they could make their games less addictive. They're not interested. That it's all about that short-term bang, 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 come back for more, keep coming back for more. And particularly the young, early teens, it all starts tying in with that kind of gambling compulsion, upgrading to different forms of the game, buying in stuff and what have you. So that was another labour of love. Our tech addiction program was a real joy to do. Really, most people don't have problems with tech addiction, but for those that do, the blunt solution isn't any good. You don't want to live your life without a smartphone. What are you going to do? How are you going to possibly survive in this day and age? It's not going to happen. Right. It's not about getting rid of tech. It's about establishing appropriate use of tech, if that makes sense. So that's the biggest change, I guess, in our application of the method for something like tech addiction, where, okay, the idea isn't to get you off tech and you never to use it again. The idea is just, okay, let's first divide these things into two. What level of your tech use is appropriate and what level is inappropriate? And it's really easy to see which one's which. And the idea is you get rid of the inappropriate tech use. And as long as you do that, you can do it with ease and enjoy the incredible benefits of tech.
Yeah. Well, how does someone know they have a problem? I mean, especially with their phone, is it when they wake up in the morning, what defines a tech addiction? Yeah,
I think people self-select for it. I mean, I think most of us know we probably spend too much time on there, whether it's particularly it's a business tool as well. We use it for everything, every aspect of our life. But I think it gets to a point where the individual knows, okay, I've got a problem with this. I can't not have my phone for like a minute. Like not even the shower is a problem. I've got to spend 5 minutes in there without access to my phone. So I think it's reassuring to people who find themselves in that position where they just eyes are constantly tired. Everything they do revolves around this handheld device. It's great for them to know actually freedom isn't about getting rid of that device and not using it anymore. It's just a few steps, some of them practical, most of them emotional and mental, taking a few steps that mean you're no longer using it inappropriately.
Okay. I want to step back just a little bit about like what addiction is and maybe like the leading cause of it. I mean, what causes this addiction in the first place? I mean, do you know really like where addictions stem from, I guess is what I'm asking.
That's a great question. addiction has been around for as long as, I guess, we've been able to take something that has those addictive qualities. Everyone's vulnerable to it. I guess that's the important thing to understand. But in terms of the first shot of the drug, whatever it might be, or behavior, is all it takes. The second you experience this feeling of insecurity as you withdraw from the drug or the behavior. And it's not a nice feeling, but it's not diabolical. It's not overwhelming. You have another shot of the drug and that feeling goes. You feel better. And over time, the withdrawal occurs again. It's not a bad feeling. It's just something's missing. You take another shot of the drug and that feeling goes. You feel fine. That's the lifetime's chain where you think the thing you think is relieving the problem is the causing the problem. It's like we've all worn a pair of shoes that are too tight because, we love the way they look or whatever else. But you wouldn't wear shoes that are too tight just for the relief of taking them off. You wouldn't do that. Yeah, that's how addiction works. It has this mistake that actually the only aggravation of drugs taken away temporarily is the aggravation caused by the previous shot of the drug. Once people understand that, they get their heads around that, then it's a case of, okay, what is the withdrawal like? How bad is it going to be? Great news, not very bad at all. Really, it's going to be a breeze. Secondly, am I going to have to feel deprived for the rest of my life? Great news, no, you don't. As long as you understand you were wearing tight shoes just for relief of taking them off. And as soon as you did it, you're never going to go back to that. You're never going to go, buy into that again. So I hate to say it, but I don't know the answer to your question. Where does it come from? Where does it start? It gets worse when people utilize it as a weapon or in business. That's for sure. So this is where gambling, alcohol, smoking, all that stuff comes in, and that's where it goes into a sort of a global scale. If that makes sense.
Is it all like this dopamine thing? Is it all this reward system? I mean, is that the cause of it? Is that what it's making it, you keep wanting more for this whole reward thing?
Yeah, I mean, again, neuroscience is just beginning to prove what Allen has always said. The dopamine issue is there. And as soon as that, I guess it was in the 90s or whatever, people started talking about dopamine receptors and everything else. And they go, I do enjoy it. There's dopamine involved. Well, that's just not true. Dopamine is involved, but it doesn't mean you enjoy it. It just means that an ending, a dissatisfactory, an unsatisfactory feeling has finished, and you feel better. And that's where the confusion goes. If the nicotine goes into your body, let's talk about nicotine, for example. The nicotine withdrawals creates this feeling of discomfort. You have a cigarette, and that feeling goes. I feel better. But it's not like you suddenly gain more dopamine than you would have done as a non-smoker. It was the drug that was disrupting your dopamine levels, manipulating dopamine levels. That's the issue, and that's the really important thing. I mean, there's so many ways that you can boost your dopamine levels, and what we say is we don't say, cuddle your girlfriend or hug your mum or listen to some great music or walk out in the sunshine or we're not saying that should be what you should do instead of smoking. We're saying this is what we do every day of our lives because we get this great dopamine feeling. The fact is that addiction fools our brain into thinking the drug helps us feel good, feel better. It doesn't. The drug creates this feeling of discomfort, then relieves it, which gives you the dopamine hit, if that makes sense. And that's we see it the wrong way around as addicts, and science, as I say, really pleased to say is confirming that this is the case. That with dopamine and addiction, it doesn't have anything to do with enjoyment or real pleasure.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah, that's just kind of how I understood it. And I thought that was the draw to it, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. But I think smoking is where it's most obvious. Most of us, I don't know if you ever used to smoke or not, but
Mm-mm.
most of us, good on you. Most of us will remember our first cigarette. It wasn't brilliant. Oh no, don't get me wrong. We were with our friends, and it was like, we might have been badgered to do it, and we finally go, okay, right, I'm going to do it. So, and it's this overwhelming thing. And you look at me, I'm smoking, forget about that.
Right.
Physically, nothing was going on there that was remotely enjoyable. Very few people would say, God, my first cigarette was the most beautiful moment of my life. Take aside all the kind of the environment and the friends and everything else, the rebelliousness or whatever else, forget about it. Physically, there was nothing there. Now, most smokers will actually remember thinking, I've heard that these things are addictive. I couldn't get addicted to this. It's not even nice enough. I mean, once we start inhaling, you kind of,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get hooked on this. It's not very nice.
Yeah.
That's the perfect example. Addiction has got nothing to do with pleasure, nothing to do with enjoyment. But that stage, we're already hooked. We're doing something against their better judgment, convinced that we never get hooked. So yeah, we're fooled. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, hundredth, 200th, thousandth shot of a drug fools us into thinking we get pleasure from it.
Yeah, because I've heard people say, oh, I hated my first cigarette, you know?
Yeah, I mean, most people would. And I say the few people who would disagree with that remember the environment, the friends, the rebelliousness, that kind of thing. No one's going to argue with that. But
Yeah.
yeah, no. And it's the same with most drugs. It's hard. We resist it. I hope your viewers won't resist it. But you think, the first time I tasted alcohol, my God, it was disgusting. It was the most disgusting thing I'd ever taken. My parents had a dinner party. I don't know how old I was. And then my brother snuck in afterwards to what drinks had been left in the glasses. It's like firewater. So it lures us in. And thankfully, most people go through their lives without alcohol being a real issue to them. Other people get kind of sucked into it. Heroin. Most people who are honest about their heroin addiction will tell you the first time was beyond awful. It's romanticized a lot in movies and by people who write about it. But if they're truly honest, it's the first use of heroin just really isn't very much fun at all. It's only after that you suddenly kind of get, oh yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah. It's sad to me. I spent, 15 years in the emergency room and have seen several young kids, 17, 18-year-olds die from overdoses. And, they were athletes, they were lacrosse players, they were just beautiful kids that had this whole future. And in my mind at that time, even though I've dealt with my brother and my mom smoked all her life, and then you're like, why did they even start it? Why did they even try it, knowing how addictive it can be? I mean, I tell my kids, don't even try it, but I'm sure everybody says that. So you have to wonder, what makes them try it? It's probably the peer pressure, but then also how quickly can someone become addicted?
Yeah, it's a couple of shots is all it takes of any drug that has addictive qualities. But I think kids are kids. I think we can all look back at our times. I mean, I shouldn't have been a smoker. My parents, neither of them smoked. I ended up a chain smoker. You get lured into it. As kids, we think we're indestructible.
That's true.
We think we know everything about everything. It's infuriating, isn't it? But we do. So somebody said, "Oh, don't do that. It's addictive." Yeah, well, I see let's see. And now, I mean, we get to a certain level, and normally having kids changes your whole view and that kind of thing. And you think exactly something. Just don't go anywhere near that, please. So there is that. People are lured into it. I think the project I'm working on at the moment, which I feel extremely passionate about, is mainly targeted for the USA, and that's the opioid epidemic there. And there you have these, the tragedy of it, where it wasn't somebody making a brave / rebellious / foolish decision.
Mm.
They had a car crash, or they broke their leg playing football, and they prescribed these extraordinarily potent opioids and hooked. And that, I'm sure your viewers and listeners have seen that probably firsthand, if not via the media. This terrible havoc that it's has been reaped on everything from youths, late teens, up to perfectly respectable, middle class, middle-aged, normal mums and what have you, who are being sucked into this addiction through no fault of their own, and almost entirely the fault of the big pharma and the doctors who took their money.
Well, you're right when you say it doesn't, I don't know if it discriminates the word. I mean, I've had doctors that have become addicted and have almost lost everything. I mean, they have to come in and get drug screened once monthly. And I've had nurses be fired for stealing. And then, I work in the urgent care. We don't typically prescribe them, thank goodness. We just flat out tell people we don't prescribe them. It's just, we're really trying to get away from it. But even in the urgent care setting, I mean, we've had 3 overdoses in the past month, and that's at the urgent care center. I mean, it's so sad. Yeah,
no, it's of course, only a small number of the cases get to the emergency room as well, I guess. And there's a lot of the interesting thing we've come across with the opioid program. I'll say it's coming to its conclusion now. We're ready to publish a book at some point, maybe in the new year, late this year, early new year, and an online video program. Is the resistance we have is the danger of overdose, having made an attempt to quit. And that's something we see sort of quite often, where somebody gets clean, they go through rehab, they get clean, and they go back to taking the drug at the same level as they did before they got clean, and that's kind of causes the big problem. That's something that it's possible to train people about. It's possible, if in a salient moment, people will know this. The world changes when you stop taking this drug, and in the event that you start taking it again, the rules. But the great news is you're never going to have to take it again. And that's, sometimes I think we put the potential downside of freedom ahead of freedom. And those sad cases where people do OD after a period of rehab and of getting clean. Well, who knows? Who knows? But I firmly believe if those people were given a clear message, then they're equipped. They're equipped, and it's the only way they're going to get free. The only way they're going to get free is to stop taking the drug.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it can only go so many directions in their life. I mean, I feel like I had a doctor tell me with my brother, I mean, it's only going to go 3 ways. I mean, it's going to kill him. He's going to get clean, or he's going to go back to jail. And, that's just kind of how it's going to be. So with this opioid addiction you're focusing on, which I think is awesome, because you're right, it is a huge problem. How much of it, how successful can they be even doing this program if their environment stays the same?
That's a very good question. So really, we're talking about what level of the addiction are they at? That's very, very difficult. If you live in a crack house, you're going to have a problem.
Right.
So, but I mean, we tend to look at those extreme examples, don't we? My clear objective of what we're doing is to target the people who are falling. Yeah. And when they need help, they will reach out for help, and through, doctors, nurses do incredible work. And I should be clear, the criticism of doctors a moment ago was solely the ones who are paid to kind of push this stuff,
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
So there's a period in the descent where they will reach out for help. That's where I want to get them.
Yeah.
Once people have gone below that level, it doesn't mean that they're lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain it doesn't, but it does mean they need to get out of wherever they are. So that's another challenge. In most cases, it shouldn't prevent them, because where they are is pretty gross and horrible and mean and nasty and not fun.
Right. Yeah, you're right about that. So you're saying also this program, vaping is a new thing amongst the kids, and it's a huge problem. Just, I don't know if is it rise to the level of cigarettes or worse than cigarettes? What's in your opinion?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think the situation is far worse in the USA than Europe, for example. Mainly because people like Juul have had a pretty free hand over, until recently, the last couple of years, pretty had an open season on kids.
Yeah, you're right.
American schools. Now, listen, there's no doubt that somebody smoking 30 cigarettes a day or whatever, they're probably I'm sure they're going to be better off short term to medium term vaping instead of smoking. So there's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. I'm in favor of anything that helps people quit smoking. And the problem with vaping, therefore, becomes where a lot of people find themselves who use it to switch from smoking. They kind of get caught between the two. So they smoke when they can and vape when they can't. That's actually the worst of all worlds, because they're actually taking on more nicotine than they would otherwise. So, we have a stop smoking program, particularly the newest edition of the book available in the USA, which is Allen Carr's Easyway to Quit Smoking rather than Stop Smoking, which is suitable for anybody, any nicotine addict, whether they smoke cigarettes or vape or whatever. That will work for what we would call a smoker vapor, or just a plain smoker. So somebody who smokes, or somebody who smokes and vapes, or somebody who used to smoke but now vapes. We produced a brand new program last year specifically for the next generation of addicts, so the vapors, kids who have never smoked a cigarette in their life. They just got drawn into it. And it's not aimed for kids. Okay, so it's not like a guy in a bright jumper, pullover, dancing around with a funny hat on. It's by the time the kids need this program, they're adults and young adults. They know they got a problem, and we don't patronize them. We just get straight into it. And it might be the least entertaining 4 or 5 hours of their life, but it will get them free of vaping. Harm reduction argument for vaping, there is one there. Do I want all children to be vapors so they don't go into smoking? No, thank you very much. So vaping, if it's going to be used, it should be used to help people quit smoking. If it does that, and I don't know, I'm not sure it does. I mean, you must have lots of people who vape now that used to smoke, and that's cool. And the great thing with Allen Carr is we have that program ready for when they want to get free completely. No one likes being addicted to anything, really. It's a controlling thing. We have people find it hard to believe we have more and more vapors coming to our seminars, sitting next to smokers, and they equally want to quit. They equally want to stop, and that's because I think most of us are scared of what smoking might do to us or whatever. But it's the nature of life as an addict that really gets to people. Nobody likes being controlled by a drug. Yeah,
you're right. It really is enslaving in the fact also you can't smoke anywhere. You can't, my mom wouldn't even want to go to a movie because she couldn't smoke in there. I mean, so it really is limiting in your life to have an addiction. So I wanted to ask you real quick, there's this big debate about marijuana and people, it's becoming, obviously bigger in the US. So do you feel marijuana is addictive?
Well, I'm asked that question all the time. Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger, everybody out there. Yeah, can be. We have a mixed up view of marijuana, cannabis. In the UK, for example, it's always mixed with nicotine more often than not. So people are not only addicted to nicotine, they've got something else going on there with marijuana as well. I'd pitch it in the same category, not ethically or not. I'm not recommending it or endorsing it or anything like that, but I'd put it in the same category as alcohol. So a lot of people can go through life drinking alcohol. Doesn't really kind of cause them too many issues. A lot of people can't, and we can help those people who can't. And I think marijuana is similar to that. Some people seem to go through life without it causing them too many problems. A lot of people can't, and we're there to help them. I think what is quite clear is the kind of stuff we're talking about now doesn't really bear any resemblance to the kind of stuff kids who are taking in the 70s or the 80s. You know, it's not the same thing. And I guess that, but unless you're growing your own and making your own stuff, I guess that's exactly what's in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so did I dodge that question or did I answer it? I'm not sure. So yeah, I think for some people, marijuana, yeah, it's not a black and white thing. For some people, marijuana is a problem. They get addicted and it screws their life up. Other people, not so much. Would I recommend that my son or daughter have it? No, I wouldn't.
I think what people forget as far as marijuana is it does impair you. It does affect your brain, especially long term, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was never a heavy user of marijuana in my youth, but I knew a few people who were, and I still know them. It hasn't done them any favors. Okay. So, I mean, that's, like I say, not judgmental about it at all. And I think that's really just important. I mean, this troubled me when Alan and I were talking about applying it to other drugs, because I think, well, if you want to quit smoking, you don't have to stop drinking alcohol as well. But the innuendo, the implication is, oh, Allen Carr does alcohol as well. Oh yeah, you've got to stop drinking, then you've got to stop smoking, or then you've got to stop gambling, then you've got to, that's not the case at all. If you have an issue with something, we can help with it. So I don't think we kind of compartmentalize that the marijuana question. Is it addictive or not? Yeah, I think it can cause people a lot of problems. I think I'd leave it. Does that make sense? That not too much of a cop out.
Yeah, no, I understand. Also, you talked a little bit about sugar, which everything it feels like in the U.S. has sugar in it. I mean, how does one know they're really addicted to sugar, and how do you help somebody with the sugar addiction?
Yeah, I think the US is definitely a special case. I went when I was 20 years old, I think, and I went to the USA on something called Camp America. It's a scheme where kids from Europe go over to America and work on the summer camps for kids, and you get a visa that allows you to travel around for a while afterwards. And the first time I had a salad in the US at age 20, 21, it kind of like, I couldn't eat it. It's like, what is this? So there's this kind of coleslaw was like, had sugar in it. Like, what is this? And macaroni cheese had sugar in it. You could literally taste it. You go like, what's happened here? So it's funny. And the reliance on the corn syrup and everything else or whatever. So sugar becomes an issue just in terms of type 2 diabetes epidemic, which is sweeping the world. So not just in the US, but South America in particular, mainly amongst poor communities as well. And that's, I can't remember what the question was you asked, but basically, there's a sugar problem. I mean, it's not just in the USA either. It is worldwide. We become mainly most people in most countries have become have established a diet full of junk. So then junk is refined sugar, processed carbohydrates, starchy carbohydrates. And this is just not food we're equipped to eat. You know, we've evolved to be able to kind of live with it to an extent, but you don't have to look too far to see what happens, what living with it does to us. It makes us put on loads of weight, and causes tremendous harm. So I think, again, with the sugar addiction program, had two objectives. One was to enable anybody who was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes to get rid of it pretty much overnight.
Wow.
So if someone diagnosed with type 2, if they adjust their eating from that moment onwards, within a week or two, in most cases, their blood sugar levels will go back to normal. They never have to have any medication. They never have to, it's an absolute breeze. They change what they eat and drink. And the brilliant thing about Allen Carr Easyway, God, I sound like I'm doing a commercial, but it's the whole beauty of the method is it doesn't leave you hanging on there. I can't have this. I can't do this anymore. It has you feel free. And you think, okay, I don't have to have that stuff anymore. And this is one where most people really have no idea what they're doing to themselves in terms of, we think about sugar, we think, candy stores or whatever. We don't think generally about pasta or potatoes, fried potatoes. But the sugar method with regard to Allen, it isn't, there's nothing really very trendy about it. It's about a frame of mind, and it's about just adjust what you're doing according to, if you like, nature's guide. And that's, well, would you eat it if it was raw? Okay. I'd eat most vegetables and fruit and that kind of stuff. I'd have if it was raw. Would I eat a potato? I don't think so. Now I would do if you I guess ground it up, stuck onion in it, stuck salt and pepper in it, and you can make it edible. But were we designed to eat it? And were we designed it to eat it as an intrinsic part of our diet? No, we weren't. It's apple pie is the brilliant thing. Do you have in the USA? Do you have what we call them cooking apples? Do you have cooking apples? But we do like apple crisp or pie or something like that. In my childhood in London, there are two types of apples. Apples that you would eat, like lovely, and these things called cooking apples. If you took a bite of one of those, you'd spit it out. It's sour, horrible. But instead of just getting rid of it because that's not food, people say, well, you know what? If I cook this, stick a load of sugar in it and some dried fruit and put a pastry on top of it, it'd be all right. And it is. Who doesn't love apple pie? Right. But that's an example of how there are apples that were designed to be eaten, apples that are definitely designed not to be eaten because they taste horrible raw. And so you start applying these kind of new way of thinking to your life, give your taste buds a kind of a chance to recover, and you actually find out what you really, really enjoy. Most of all, the stuff that makes you feel really, really good is the stuff that's best for you. And it's anyway, I've gone on about too much, haven't I? But did I answer that question? I don't know.
Yeah. So basically is it kind of, you're training your mind, you're going through all those things of maybe why you're choosing it, and also to bring awareness of maybe what you don't even realize you're doing, Yeah. No, exactly. Sometimes to no fault of your own. I think the food industry puts a lot of sugar in everything to, draw people in to want more. So it's sad.
Yeah. I mean, you must have you seen that, it's called That Sugar movie or that sugar film? I
haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. Sugar.
I think it's called That Sugar Film, but it might be under a different name in America. Because do you call movies films in the USA? I don't think so.
Movies, yeah.
Yeah, That Sugar Movie. And you have a watch of that. It's about an hour and a half long, 2 hours long. It's just extraordinary. It's just a real education. And most of us have no idea. I mean, I didn't, 10 years ago, I didn't know what a carbohydrate was. I'm embarrassed to admit this. I had no bloody idea. I knew I'd eat that, and that. I had no idea what fiber was. We don't know. So there's a certain amount of holding your hands up and saying, okay, I need a bit of education here. Right. And the brilliant thing is it's really easy. If you have to look at the ingredients on a product, it's probably not designed for you to eat.
Right.
So if it should be obviously edible, if you know what I mean. But a long list of ingredients, generally a bad sign. It is a frame of mind. So it's part education without being patronizing. I say it makes it sound like you're going to get talked down at and assumed that you're daft. But what's quite important part of Alan's method is we don't BS. There's no gimmick in it. We don't wrap it up anyway. We say it how it is. And that's an important part of it working for everybody. So some education, some guidance on how to sort of identify what is food and what isn't, some wiggle room. So in the same way as, you can't expect people with a problem with tech addiction to never use tech again.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, you're going to let some, what we call bad sugar in somewhere along the line, even if it's accidental or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then it's like, okay, don't beat yourself up. Hang on. As long as your thinking is all right, you're going to be fine. It's about understanding the illusions and the brainwashing with sugar. So going back to that sugar movie, it talked about the sugar industry, the food industry, painted fat as the baddie. Even now, most people really in the street, most people will tell you they go for low fat options every time. We have no idea that all the science behind that is completely flawed.
You're right.
The reason it's completely flawed is because the food industry did those studies and pushed those studies, mm-hmm. and they convinced the entire world that fat is the enemy. Okay, low fat. Now, most low fat foods, guess what's in them? Loads of sugar.
Right.
And sugar is a way of selling unnutritious, cheap, rubbish food to people.
Right.
That's it. Forgive me, Italy, because I love Italy. I love Italian food, but look at pasta. Eat a bowl of pasta on its own.
Yeah.
Without anything else on it. It's like something from outer space. Why would you want to eat that?
It's like rubbery and
yeah, but put some proper food in it, like tomatoes, onion, herbs, mushrooms, whatever. All of a sudden, it becomes a banquet. Well, it becomes the rubbish food is a vehicle for the good stuff, if that makes sense. And it gives you that full up feeling, most of which people hate. And this is the other amazing thing, is that switch in the mind that you no longer, your objective in eating is no longer to feel full up. And you must hear that a lot from a lot of people. Oh, I want to be full up. That's not the way to live. You don't want to feel full up all the time. And most of us, back in the days when I used to eat pasta and bread, and I used to love it when I was younger. But you finish a bowl of pasta or a big load of pizza, and you go, ugh. It's horrible feeling. Most people will relate to that. It's because you just put a load of rubbish in, So, so as soon as you stop chasing a full up feeling, decisions change. And it's a brilliant journey. That's one aspect of the book. I really don't want people to think the program is just about people with type 2. It's about people not getting type 2. And it's also about, it can help weight loss. Weight loss is fine. If you want to get rid of type 2, this will do it. If you want to control your weight, this will do it. It's a brilliant project.
Yeah. So when people go through the initial program, you offer it, like, I don't know about now since the coronavirus, but you offer it like in seminars. Is it like a one-day thing or a one-day online thing, or how long is the actual program?
Yeah, not all of our programs are available via seminar. Most of them are. And the live seminars, and we did this in the USA before COVID came along, which was really useful because we managed to apply it in all our other territories. We made our live online stop smoking seminars available in the USA, having just been in New York and LA and Denver for many years. Overnight, we went to being available in every city, every state, coast to coast, just by going online. Wow. And we've been doing that for a couple of years in the USA, and it's been brilliant. It's exactly the same as being in the room. The problem we had before COVID was just really getting people to get their heads around it, because in business, you know, you've been doing this stuff for years, online videos, meetings, but the average person hasn't been doing it. Kids get used to Snapchat. So there's a big tranche of people in there who need us most, needed a bit of persuading that actually, you just plug in and there you are. And it's like being in a room together. Whereas COVID has kind of blown that away. So now people really understand. So we're actually thinking about rebranding our live online group seminars to live Zoom group seminars, just because it's become part of the modern language. That's smoking, alcohol, sugar addiction, cocaine, cannabis, other drugs. These seminars are available online. We also have online video programs as well. So they're not the same as the live seminar, but they're kind of the next best thing to it. And you know, my time with Allen, so it's 22 years now, 23 years, has been all about applying the method to as many different things as we can to help as many people as we possibly can. While we're doing that, make it available in as many languages as we can. And while we're doing that, make it available to as many people, regardless of their income, as we can. That's where the book came from. That's why, you know, Allen Carr started with that Stop Smoking book. And if he hadn't put the method in a book, we wouldn't have helped 50 million people worldwide. As simple as that. So if somebody can't afford an online seminar, the book's there. It's a brilliant book. It works for so many people. It's absolutely, so I would never try and dissuade someone from reading the book in favor of a seminar. But it really depends. I'm lazy. I'd much rather go to a seminar than bother reading a book.
See, I like to read, so. I don't know if somebody thinking about a sugar addiction or another addiction would think to go to a book on how to quit smoking. But really, in that book, it's the principles that can help with all of them.
Yeah, they're all separate programs. Now, they're all completely separate programs. So we have Allen Carr's Easyway to Quit Smoking, it's the Quit Smoking book. With the sugar program, we called it Good Sugar, Bad Sugar. I was quite proud of that. Quite proud of that title. Tech Addiction, Smartphone, Dumb Phone. It's kind of like gets the message across. So allencarr.com, it gives you all the options of getting all the programs. So if you like, the kernel of the method was formed in stopping smoking. We worked really hard to apply it to all those other issues completely differently. So the good news is, if you have a sugar issue, you don't have to read the Stop Smoking book.
Well, by the way, who teaches the seminars? Like, these are trained therapists, right? That maybe have had, all of them have mostly dealt with addiction of some sort?
Yeah, 100%. It's facilitators, all our facilitators not only used to suffer the addiction they're helping people with, but used Allen Carr's Easyway to get free.
Wow.
And that's awesome. That's how I got involved with Allen, as I said, 23 years ago. Got in touch, and he, kindly let me get involved and to help. Yeah. And it's just one of those things. It's always been a line we've drawn in the sand that, particularly if you're going to tell people it's easy, you can't really do that if you haven't done it yourself with the same method, if that makes sense. So, right. So yeah, I mean, it's really when I was doing the seminars in London, often was asked, even though in the first sentence I'd said I used to smoke 80 a day, people kind of need to hear things 3 or 4 times before they registers. And quite often during a coffee break, they said, "Did you used to smoke?" Well, yeah. It's quite reassuring, that I mean, a guy 80 a day smoker who quit with the method and think, well, I'm on 20 a day or 30 a day. If he can do it, I can, sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're all they're just a fabulous bunch of people. We have once a year I host a international conference, normally around the London area, and all our facilitators and admin teams and management teams from every corner of the globe are invited. I invite them over, and we put them up in a hotel, 2 or 3 days and nights. We talk about best practice and ideas and all sorts of kind of thing. We have a massive party.
Wow.
It doesn't matter where the person's from. And this is what, having been so lucky to be involved in the growth of the method, taking the method to different parts of the world. There were times when I was worried, okay, so this year we got the Israeli delegates and the Saudi Arabian delegates, the guys from wherever, the Colombians, or the USA guy, whatever, I don't know. It never mattered. It's never mattered. Everyone's got kind of on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
We're quite careful about who we allow into the organization in recruitment terms. I still sort of manage most of that personally, just because, you want to get the right people involved.
Right.
And what draws them in is always wow, I got free. I got free. I want to help other people do this.
Yeah. You've helped some big people quit smoking and quit other addictions too, haven't you? I mean, I read Ellen DeGeneres, helped quit smoking, Ashton Kutcher. There were some big names.
Yeah, it's the stuff that really, I'm an Allen Carr facilitator. I have been. That's my first love, helping people in the room get free. Yeah. For my sins, I ended up, running the whole show.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get better. That life doesn't get any better when somebody kind of messages me and says, "Jesus, did you hear what Ellen DeGeneres just said on her show, Prime Time USA, about Allen Carr?" And you go, "Yeah, of course." And you see it and think, these are endorsements money can't buy. And Ashton Kutcher did it as well. Got it on the Tonight Show, I think. And then he came over to the UK at one point and was kind enough to kind of keep going on about it then as well. It's a brilliant thing. And I think the endorsements, whether it's Sir Richard Branson, St. Anthony Hopkins, or Ellen DeGeneres, Angelica Houston, whoever it is, they're not paid for. They're just, and the first time we normally find out about them is when they're published in a magazine or the clip goes online or whatever. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's the same kind of the thing that encourages people to get in touch with us, to come and work with us. It's the enthusiasm. God, if I can do it, anyone can. That kind of thing. So I think that's it's a great asset for us when people talk about the success for the method.
Absolutely. Well, where can people find you, connect with you, and try to get more involved with this, and maybe try to quit addiction? Yeah, sure.
Take a look at allencarr.com. That's ALLEN. The CARR.com. There's all kinds of stuff on there. So I'm the world's worst salesperson, and I hate kind of plugging stuff or whatever. But there's stuff as easy as a free book from Audible if you don't have an Audible account already. Well, get that. That's great. Or we have online video programs or the live seminars. Take a look around. There's we're covering more and more issues and addiction as each year passes. And we're always happy to help. Get in touch with us. We're having a huge launch in America at the moment. We've got our #1 girl flying into the USA. She's relocated. She's going to fly next week, and she's going to take full responsibility for most of our activities in the USA. So watch out. We're coming.
Wow, that's awesome. So last question. I think I know this, but I want to hear it from you. What is the impact that you hope to have on the world with your work?
Help anybody who needs it. I think that's the real thing. I mean, for me, that has changed immensely over my years with Allen Carr. So I got in touch with Allen Carr because I couldn't believe he helped me quit smoking. Yeah. And I'd be dead now if I hadn't had the good fortune to go along there. I was a goner.
Yeah.
And it took me a little convincing to go beyond my speciality. You know, this is my bag, stopping smoking. But the mailbag, as it used to be, or the inbox, is all you need. And just being, going from being able to help 30 smokers in a room in London to tens of millions of people, whether they speak Chinese, Japanese, or Spanish, or whatever. It's just an awesome privilege and pleasure. So cure the world of smoking. That's the big answer. Below that, and any other addiction or issue that people are struggling with, for sure.
It's awesome. It's such a huge accomplishment already, and just providing people, actually like giving them their life back, because not only are they free of addiction, now they're not doing something that may shorten their life.
Exactly, and you must know about that feeling in your work as well. I mean, it's you're in there in the room, and it's just an incredible thing that you do, and tough. What you do is, and your colleagues are the hardest yards of all. So I wouldn't want to ignore that at all.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Hopefully we keep more people from getting in that room somewhere along the line.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me. It's been awesome talking with you about this topic, and hopefully we do this again. Maybe when you're a little further into the U.S. with that new person that's taking over.
Yeah, we're all over it already, so we're up and running already. But we send out our number one. When Pulp Fiction's my favorite movie. Okay, you've got the wolf in. We're sending the wolf just to kind of zip things up a bit more. So no, we're really, really pleased with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, good to talk with you. Hopefully we do this again. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Take care.